I have with me today Chad Williams, who will be talking to us about a digital mindset. How are you doing today, Chad?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Randy. I
Yeah.
was trying to avoid doing the whole social distancing thing from the home office, looking out the window, seeing the lawn. It's a beautiful, beautiful
Yeah,
day. So glad to be with you today.
it is a beautiful day today, and we have that to hold on to.
Right. That's exactly right.
Well, hey, I'm going to step aside and let you get started here.
All right. Thanks so much, Randy. And I'm sure many of you are experiencing a lot of things differently in the last few weeks. You're doing a lot more things in the digital space than you ever thought you would. And you may be asking all kinds of questions about, man, what should I be doing? What shouldn't I be doing? And we want to talk about that today. First, just a little bit about why should you be listening to Chad Williams talking about digital? Well, I am the founder of 5Q, and our organization, we exist to help organizations multiply their digital impact, especially the nonprofit organizations. So I started 5Q in 2004. We're also the creators of the Journity personalization platform. So in the last 16 years, we've seen lots of changes when it comes to digital. Some of you too may be working remotely, being in positions where you're having to work remotely for the first time. Well, our organization, we have about 20 staff and contractors. We've been working remotely for the last 20 years, or the last 16 years. So we've learned lots of different lessons along the way. And I'm happy to be able to share some of those with you. Just a few of the organizations we serve. We do serve primarily in the nonprofit space, just a few of those organizations right there. And we help them with digital strategies in personalizing digital experiences for folks that come to your site. So first, I want to introduce you to Joe and to Mary. So Joe, he's an executive director at Organization A, which is Organization A is a small local nonprofit. He's one of 3 staff, and it just always seems like there's never enough time to get stuff done. Now, especially with COVID, Joe has to do more stuff on the internet, Zoom meetings, and just everything is changing so fast. And as fast as this digital experience is changing, he just doesn't know what is and isn't possible, and he doesn't know how should I determine what are the right things to be doing in digital, what are the right things to be investing in. So there's Joe. Then I want to introduce you to Mary. Mary is a CEO of a large national nonprofit. She constantly has her marketing team coming up with creative suggestions. They're a crack marketing team, but she's always looking at the possibilities and also looking at the budget. And she's like, man, we just don't have the resourcing to do that. And then you throw in the whole COVID thing, and she's getting pushed and stretched in lots of different areas. She knows she's going to be frustrating her team if she constantly says no to their ideas, but she just can't see the value. So both Joe and Mary are asking the same question. It's how do we determine the right digital strategies for our specific organization? Now the answers might be completely different, but they're asking the same question. So if you find yourself either in Joe's position or Mary's position, or maybe you're on the marketing team or the technology team, or you're the only one in the organization, you're nonprofit, at some point you have to be asking, man, how do I know what the right thing to do is in digital? And before we look at tactics, before we look at strategies, really what I encourage folks to start with is what's the right mindset? What is the right mindset, the right approach to thinking and acting and developing digital strategies? So I want to share 5 marks of a healthy digital mindset with you today. The first, that's what we're going to be talking about. So the first is that it's outreach, not channel. So what do I mean by that? A lot of people, when they think digital, they think, well, digital is our website, and it's the way we market and the way we message to be able to get the word out there about what we do. I'm going to challenge you to think, man, don't just think of it as a marketing channel or a fundraising channel or maybe even a messaging channel, but instead think of it as how can we actually accomplish our mission in the digital space. And a lot of us have been forced to do that in the last 4 to 6 weeks. I'm just going to give you 3 examples of nonprofit organizations who are using digital not just to communicate, not just to market, but actually accomplish their mission in the digital space. The first is Cincinnati Zoom Home, the Home Safari. You can actually go to the Cincinnati Zoo website and sign up for a safari, and what they'll do is they will give you a hosted tour of the different, like if your kids are stuck at home, you could go to the zoo just by going online, going to the Cincinnati Zoo, and you're able to see exactly all the different animals that they have available. So they're providing their experience that you can do in person in an online venue. Same with Rock Recovery Fitness. Again, they're a nonprofit organization. They do a lot of fitness up in the New York area, and so they have, during this time, they've converted what they do in the as a fitness center. They've said, okay, how can we use digital? In this case, again, it's events, guided events through Zoom or GoToMeeting or whatever it is. How can we accomplish our mission in the digital space? And then I thought this was really, really creative. Just read about this a couple of days ago, GoToMeeting. So they're a Silicon Valley nonprofit. They actually have a farm, and they introduce people to small hobby farm type life, and they saw an opportunity. And so what they started doing is they offer GoToMeeting. So for less than $100, you can actually purchase to have a goat show up to your Zoom meeting, just to provide some comic relief for the folks that are in there. And at the same time, they're exposing people to what they do as a nonprofit organization, giving exposure to the care and the rescue and the animals that they work with and interact with. So those are just 3 ways, 3 examples of how you can approach digital, not just from marketing, but how can we use it to actually accomplish our mission of our organization. I'm sure if you guys were to think about it, there's ways that you are already doing, especially that you've been forced to. And then what I'm going to encourage you to do is think about, okay, after this COVID goes away, what of these new strategies that we've been using for the last few weeks, which ones should we continue to use? And then continue to have that mindset of, man, how can we use digital as outreach, not just a channel for marketing what we do in offline areas. So the second digital mindset I want you to think about is that digital is relationship, not just one way. So how many of you have ever been on a Facebook or a Twitter feed and all you read is their self-promotion material saying, here's a offer of what we do, it's all about us, it's all about them, it's all about what they're doing. Instead, draw that juxtaposed against an organization where they're constantly asking for engagement, they're interacting with the audience. Once in a while they may offer something for free or may offer a deal for what they're doing, let people know, but that's a very low percentage of the overall interaction. And so as you think about digital, realize that digital is 2-way relationship, communication back and forth, not just a one-way blast of what it is that your organization does. I think Special Olympics does a great job here. You can see an example of a great job with them. They had somebody post, hey, here's some basketball moves that we did, and specifically sent them to the Special Olympics and some moves specifically for their audience. Well, the folks who are monitoring the Twitter feed, they started an interaction. They didn't just interact with the person who posted the video, they also drew in other people saying, hey, what do you think, Steph McMahon, about what Rob posted? So it's a 2-way conversation or a multi-way conversation. It's not just blasting out your information, but it's also about how do we interact with folks. A couple tools, if you're not already using them, one is, as you look at your Facebook strategy as a whole, often you have an organization has a choice between, do we want to set up a Facebook page or a Facebook group? Anytime you're faced with that decision, lean towards a Facebook group. And the reason is because Facebook, everything that gets posted in that group and the people who are in that group, they will see it and they will have it appear in their timeline, as opposed to a Facebook page where you have to pay to be able to get promoted to a broader audience. And Facebook groups, again, are a great way just to interact with folks, make it a two-way conversation, not just one way. And then how do you keep up with all of that? One tool that we've used is called Hootsuite. It allows you to log into one device, and then you communicate, you can schedule your own posts, but then you can interact with people who are maybe coming on Instagram or Facebook or WhatsApp or all the different social media options. You can use one tool to be able to manage all of those communications. And there's lots of others out there besides Hootsuite. There's also lots of other groups. Those are just two tools that we use that I encourage you to take a look at. I also just put a quick plug. We've developed just in the last month, I want to give you a personal invitation to a private Facebook group that we've created. It's on specifically nonprofit marketing and personalization. That's kind of our area of expertise. And so you can just shoot me an email and I'll extend you an invitation to that. And you'll see my contact information again at the end of this webinar. So the third area of mindset that a person should have as they're thinking about digital is that digital is personalized, not generic. We all know what this looks like in the for-profit space. When you go to Amazon, everything is tailored to you. When you go to Amazon, it says people who have purchased this that you're looking at on your site have also purchased this. It also said, hey, you have this in your cart. You may also want to be thinking about adding something else to your cart. So it's tailored to you, tailored to your behavior, your activities, the things that you've done with Amazon. Facebook the same way. When I go to Facebook, when you go to Facebook, the feed that you're looking at is unique to you. The Netflix, again, the same way. Everything in these large organizations, for-profit organizations, is tailoring the experience to the individual based on their past behaviors. In the nonprofit space, we've actually been fairly slow to adopt some of the opportunities that are out there. And we have huge opportunity as we add personalization, personalized experience, we've seen fundraising efforts go up. We've seen the ability to interact with people, lead generation goes up, and just to draw, well, I could give you lots of case studies, but the nonprofit space, the ability to be able to add personalization and use it effectively is here. I'm just going to give you a quick example. This is actually the Nonprofit Hub. You're here on the listening to the Hub webinar, Nonprofit Hub webinar, and this is from their website. And there's actually 3 areas on this site that's being driven from a personalized area. Depending on the behaviors that people are using, you will see different things. Those 3 areas are the 3s that are circled right there. Subscribe to the Hubcap, the conference promotion, and some of their sponsors on the right-hand side. If you've already, an example of personalization in this case would be if you've already subscribed to the Hubcap, you could go there and you wouldn't see that promotion because you're already a subscriber. If you've seen this ad before, you've clicked on it, when you come back again, you're going to see a different ad, again, based on your behavior. And another example for that would be if you're I'm going to say a generic, not a generic, if you're a nonprofit that really relies on donations to make your organization go, those smaller donations, a lot of times you have a flow, a funnel that you work people through. It's you connect with them over the mission, so they're a lead, and then in that course of time, you connect with that person, you convert them into somebody who's interested in your organization, and eventually you make the pitch to them about becoming a donor, and they become a donor. So they're working through the funnel. Well, when they come to your website, you should be able to talk to them where they're at in that funnel. So we're looking at right now a website that's asking for the email. What if the next time a person comes back and they say, hey, we know instead of seeing and sign up for the email, which they've already signed up for, they see an option to make a donation. Again, we're communicating to them where they're at in the funnel, in the flow of interacting with their organization. So personalization is really, really vital. To get a deeper look at it, this book just came out in the last month. It's called Responsive Fundraising by a friend of mine, Gabe Cooper. It's really worth reading, and you can get a free copy right now at their website. And again, you don't have to write this down. If you want this slide deck, just shoot me an email after this this talk, and I'd be glad to share it with you. But this is a really good book, specifically tying the concept of personalization and responding as to a person based on how they're interacting with you in a real-time way, in a mass way, in a way that you're able to increase your fundraising. So it's a great resource. The fourth mark of a healthy digital mindset is that digital is integrated and it's not siloed. And this really impacts two key areas of an organization. One is in your messaging and the other is in your technology. So first is about integrated messaging. And I assume most of you know and understand and probably are doing when you communicate, let's say you're communicating an announcement about COVID, that you're communicating the same message in all the different channels, whether it's your direct mail, email, personal meetings. Actually, that icon, they should probably be doing elbow touches instead of handshakes there, your social media. But the point is that your messaging should be integrated across all the different areas that you're communicating with. And I know I'm on one large organization. One time on the same day, I got two direct mails promoting two completely different offerings, opportunities to donate. And so that's an example where the communication was not integrated across the entire organization. I was being flooded with ask to give from two, like the right hand did not know what the left hand was doing. So make sure that your messaging is integrated across your entire organization, across all of your channels. There is if you Google planning templates, like communication planning templates, there's a lot of them out there. There's one that we've made available for folks called just specifically for the year-end fundraising, but being able to have a way to track, okay, what are the different areas that we're connecting with, what's the overall messaging, and who is doing what on specific days, so that you're able to create a coordinated response, a coordinated communication plan. So just Google planning templates and communication planning templates, and you'll find a bunch of them out there. Also integrated, not just messaging, but also it's really important that you have your technology integrated. And there's lots of different ways that you can do this. If you're a larger organization, you may have IT staff that can help integrate some of those things. If you're smaller, I'm just going to give an example where we use internally. It's a service called Zapier, and so that C that you see, that's copper. That's our sales pipeline software. When an opportunity is won in copper, it triggers something in Zapier that automatically sets up the right folder into Google Drive. It automatically sends a Slack message to everybody on the team. It automatically starts the project management software system in our project management software called Teamwork. And then not only that, but through Zapier, it actually takes from Google, the folder that gets set up on the Google Drive gets put back onto that opportunity in copper, onto that, into that account, if you will, that record in copper. So you've got all kinds of interactions flowing back and forth. And just you don't have to know any coding. I was actually the one that was able to set this up, so you don't have to be super technical. Using a service like Zapier, and there's others out there, allows you to pull together all these different technologies and be able to automate your workflows so that you don't have to continually be doing entering things by hand in multiple areas, multiple things, but you want to be able to integrate your technology internally. The fifth digital mindset that you want to have is that digital is dynamic. That means that it's constantly changing. What we see today was not the same even 2 years ago, even 2 months ago, in terms of what's digitally possible. And so when we think about how things are dynamic in the digital space, really 3 areas to think about. One is you have to find ways to constantly be learning. And whether that's yourself going to seminars, subscribing to different newsletters, attending webinars like what you're doing right now, going to events, or whether it's having allowing space for your team to be continuing to learn about what's going on in the digital space. I know for myself, there was an experience when I was working in the digital department. This was probably 20 years ago, inside of a nonprofit organization, and I was working on a huge campaign, huge system. It was about a 6-month project, and after that 6-month project, I ended up going to a conference. And that conference was talking about some new technologies, new possibilities that had actually been out for a few months. One of those, this was back in the day, this will kind of date me. One of those was an RSS, what is now used for podcasting and blogging. So it was an RSS feed feature. And I was like, wow, a lot of these people are already using it, and I hadn't even heard of this term. And that was because I'd been so focused on the specific project that I've been working on. I felt like I was a mole popping their head out of the ground, or groundhog popping out of the ground, seeing what's available out there for the first time after being heads down working on a project. And so in your personal rhythms and in your team rhythms, make sure you're making space for ways to learn. Another way to stay up with the ever-changing world of technology is partnering with organizations like Nonprofit Hub, or even those that do consulting. They should be bringing you new ideas on a regular basis. So then it comes to apply. Okay, we have no problem with all kinds of information coming in all the time. How do I know what I should be applying to my organization, especially as I look at all the different options out there? I like to use what I developed probably 20 years ago when I was working inside an organization. It's what I call the 10% rule. This is really good for a nonprofit to help keep them on the leading edge of technology, but not on the bleeding edge of technology. And what the 10% rule is that when a technology gains adoption of 10% of your market share, then you should be looking at incorporating that, being more intentional about using it in your space. The flip side of that is also true, is when a technology stops being used by 10%, you shouldn't have to spend resources supporting that technology any longer. Great example for the first one is mobile devices. When mobile devices, iPhone, before the iPhone, there were several attempts at, I had a Palm Trio, but then when the iPhone came out, all of a sudden you had these websites that you could view on a mobile device. It looked really ugly because the ways the sites were designed, they were designed for desktop, the desktop being viewed on a desktop. But hey, we were able to look at them on a mobile device. A lot of people were saying, oh man, we've got to create multiple sites to be able to serve the audiences that if they're coming from a mobile or if they're coming from a desktop. And you had those that were on the bleeding edge start creating multiple different websites depending on the browser that they were, the device that they were coming from. Well, by about the time that it hit the 10% of the audience, a new technology had popped up called responsive web design. And that allowed you to create one website that looked good on mobile and also looked good on your desktop. And so that tells us two things. Number one, waiting until the 10% allows you to make wiser decisions about how to implement the specific technology. And the other is a good trigger for knowing when to adopt a technology. There were some technologies before the iPhone that tried to implement the web on mobile devices that never got much traction, like WAP, Wide Access Protocol, and lots of different others. So just using that 10% rule can help you make really better decisions, a better use of your resources, knowing how to adopt new technologies. And then as you add new technologies, make sure you're measuring. You have a system and measurement to say, okay, this is effective or this isn't effective. If you're looking at the mobile strategy space, if you choose to implement an app, okay, how are we going to measure effectiveness for this mobile app that we've just built? And then if it's working, great. If it isn't, figure out what you need to do to make it work. Or if it still isn't, if it's just not hitting the audience, don't be afraid to cut that cut that offering because it's just not hitting the market like you had been hoping. Want to just shout out with Cause Camp coming up in October, another great way to keep learning. In Lincoln, the good folks at Nonprofit Hub again are putting it on. It's just a great event to be able to stay on the cutting edge, not just about digital. Digital will be an important part of that, but also all things nonprofit, from general nonprofits. It's a great event. Encourage you to be there. So there you have it, the 5 marks of a healthy digital mindset, along with some tools to help implement them. The first is that it's outreach, not just a channel. Second is that it's relationship, not just relationship and conversation, not just proclamation, not one way. It's personalized, not generic. It's integrated and ubiquitous, which means it touches everything in an organization, and it's dynamic and not static. We also just wanted, as it relates to that third mark of offering personalization to your website audiences, we have developed a Journity personalization platform. It's the one that Nonprofit Hub is actually using that I showed earlier on their website. We're actually offering offering that to organizations free during this time with COVID. And so you can use it to be able to message your audience immediately and effectively on an ongoing basis. Lots of organizations are using it to draw in new subscribers to your different lists at top of the funnel, and also to be able to use responsive fundraising to increase your donations. And if you want to find out more, go to journity.com and we can give you a free demo, or you can actually sign up directly right there with that free offer. So those are the 5 marks of a healthy digital mindset. I'd love to entertain any questions you might have.
Thank you so much for all of that great information, Chad. So far, not seeing any questions yet. Maybe you just are, maybe you've stunned them a little bit. I did answer a couple of questions while you were talking that I knew the answer to, like, does Hootsuite connect to Instagram? And I said yes.
Great. Yep. Okay.
I was really, I always love when I learn something, and I usually learn something new on all of these. I did not know about Zapier, so I was kind of excited. I'm going to dig into that after we're done here. You think you've heard everything, and you get surprised every once in a while.
Yeah, Zapier has been a great tool for us. They have a free version you can use. I think we're paying $15 a month. And we use it to connect with, like every organization. We have lots of different technologies we're using, and it just allows us to integrate and automate. Allows us to automate in ways that you would normally have to hire a programmer to do. And for $15
okay, we got
a month,
questions coming in now. So, what are some common mistakes nonprofits make that we may not know that we're making?
So I think there's in the digital space, at a big picture, there's 2 ends of the spectrum. The first is just being, I'll use the term Luddite, like you're not using a technology. I had remember talking to a president of a college and university. When he stepped in to take over, they were still processing their donations and completely manual, both checks and when somebody would call in with their credit card, they would write it down, and it was like the previous president or the previous administration just did not see the need for going digital. And obviously that was some changes where he made rather rapidly, one for liability reasons, but also just for efficiency reasons. So one end of the spectrum is that you may think everything is working well right now, and you just may not be aware of all the different opportunities for added efficiencies that are out there. The other end of the spectrum, which we see a lot as well, and what I see there is what I call the shiny syndrome. So anything new in the technology space, they're constantly going to their team saying, hey, we need to implement this, not just they don't have a strategy behind it. They just saw one of their competitors using it, and so there's like, man, we got to be using this tomorrow. And so the team finds themselves being like almost like, what's this? Oh, that's changed. What's new today? is like they're jerked around, like, oh man, we can't get any Jim Collins talks about the flywheel concept of continuing to work towards that a specific goal when you're focused on the right strategy to accomplish it. So that's where, if you're trying, like, you can actually be trying too much and spreading your team thin and just chasing everything that's shiny. And that's where that 10% rule is really, really helpful to be able to evaluate what's a good strategy, a good tactic to implement, and when should we implement it.
It's funny that you mentioned that 10% rule again. How do you know when the technology is here to stay and that they've reached their 10% threshold?
Yeah, so it's going to depend on the technology. The biggest area where I've found, if is like, especially in the area of web technologies, is looking at your Google Analytics. So way back in the day, you had to design your websites for specific screen resolutions, and the way you did that, it just looked differently on the different screens. And so when a screen, so you can look in Google Analytics and you can see what devices people are using, what screen resolution they're using, what your audience makeup is, and use that data to be able to say, oh, okay, now we can tell that a lot of people are coming to our website, more than 10% are coming to our website from a mobile device. What is the right strategy that we should be used to serve them well? So look at Google Analytics for a lot of your things when it comes to your website digital pieces. The other areas, again, at the end of the day, that 10%, it's about audience, measuring your audience and being close to your audience, being able to know what are the things that they're interested in, what are the things they're not interested in. So whether that be formal surveys or interactions or analytics like Google Analytics, those are some of the key ways that we look at when we're working with organizations to tell when that tipping point at 10% is.
Oops, sorry about that. I was answering another question offline.
Yeah.
Let's see. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between Hootsuite and Zapier?
Yeah, that's actually a good question, because Hootsuite is just for social media. And what Hootsuite allows you to do is to have, think of it as a communication hub where you can log into Hootsuite and you can see what's happening on your Google group or on your Facebook groups and Facebook pages, what's happening on your Instagram, what's happening on your Twitter feed, all in one place. And so instead of hopping from website to website to respond to individuals, you can respond in one software environment. So Hootsuite is just social media, and it's really about just the communication parts about it. And so you can schedule something in Hootsuite and all of your, so you can say, I want this to be posted at Facebook and Twitter at the same time. I wouldn't always recommend that because your communication methods should be a little different, but you can do that and you can schedule things. You can do that in Hootsuite. What Zapier is more of a behind the scenes system where you set up and forget. So with Zapier, I logged into Zapier one time, set up, they call them Zaps, set up the ability so that when something happens, whether it's in Copper, our CRM, our constituent relationship management software, or if something happens in our project management software, something specifically, that would trigger like a cascading event of it kicks off a process. So it allows us to automate our processes internally, not just social media, but any internal process that we have the ability to automate that using Zapier. So Hootsuite, social media, Zapier, automate processes.
Thanks for that clarification. Someone has a Facebook page for their nonprofit and they want to switch it to a Facebook group. Can they take the people along with them on that?
Yeah. So that'd be a great question for me to actually ask our social media team. But
I'll jump in here on that then.
Yeah, go ahead, Randy.
The difference between a Facebook page and a group, Groups are a little bit more private, actually. A page is a little bit more public, and you would have to invite people to come over to that group. You couldn't just automatically move them over. It just doesn't work that way. At least it didn't in my recent knowledge. They might have changed that, but as of when I did that last, you had to invite them to come back over and basically join the group. Which it's easy to get them to set up to join, but you have to go through it. It's kind of a manual process.
Yeah, that's
Let's
correct.
see.
And then with your groups, you also have private and public groups that
Right.
may or may not help that transition process.
Yep. My question would be, why would you want to switch? And making sure you have your strategy as to why you would rather be a group than a page, or maybe you need both. Maybe you need both a page and a group, depending on what you're trying to achieve. You can have yes, you can have both.
Yep. Typically you see organizations with both. You can think of the page as almost like a mini website. And so you have the content, you're posting content. The drawback with the page, and this has everything to do with Facebook's policies, is that is an ad revenue source for Facebook. And so when you post something on your Facebook page, there's no guarantee that people who have liked you or subscribed to your page are actually seeing that content, because they don't get a notice. It doesn't show up in their feed, and they don't get an automatic notification. Whereas if you or somebody posts to your group, that will show up in the people who subscribe to that group. That will show up in their feed, and you will get a notice. On the Facebook page side, you have to pay Facebook money to be able to get it promoted to even those people who have already subscribed. So that's Facebook is in the business. They do what they do. They're a for-profit organization, and so that's how they pay for their services.
And I know I'm a part of a nonprofit organization that has multiple groups for different reasons, and a lot of them are private. So yeah, just be thinking about how your strategy would work on that.
Let me just follow up real quick on that. A lot of people might ask, well, why public and why private? You can think of a private group if you want to go really deep with the content. If you want to go really deep with the people that think of it as more of an intimate, deep conversations going on. Whereas with a public group, it's going to be much more broad, or get as many people as you can. The interactions may not go as deep as what they are with a private group.
Okay, can you clarify the GOAT group? Did they allow, let me restate that. Sometimes I just have stumbling moments here. So the GOAT group had an animal join a Zoom meeting for a donation, correct?
Okay, yeah. Sorry if I didn't communicate that well. I don't remember the exact web address, but the name of so the GOAT group, they're an organization that has they're a farm in Silicon Valley. And when this whole COVID thing came on, they realized, hey, there's going to be people out there that want to add some comic relief to their meetings. And so they started actually selling. I don't think they posted it as a donation. I think it was actually, hey, for $59 or $69 or less than $100, you can actually have a GOAT join your go-to meeting or your Zoom webinar or your Zoom call that you're having. So they're very entrepreneurial. And then they've used that to be able, even though they're selling their services of bringing a GOAT to a Zoom meeting for a corporate company, then they can also say, hey, would you like to see a tour of the farm? And then they can give a tour of the farm. They can give exposure to the organization themselves. So just a creative use that they're doing during this COVID period. I think if you Google GOAT to meeting Silicon Valley, you'll be able to find more about that.
All right, Chad, let's see about this one here. Kathy asks about how often you should post to Facebook, and I have a friend who is a social media professional for the nonprofit sector, and Stephen Chaddock says, when you have something to say. So
Yeah.
I kind of like that. It's like you don't need to post for posting's sake. You should always have something to say. Any thoughts on that, Chad?
Just that I would agree that you want to think of it again. If you think of approach it with the mindset of this is a relationship, not just a blasting out, but a relationship. When you have something valuable to share with your friends, that's when you want to post. And hopefully you'll have things that are valuable multiple times a week, or depending on the venue, maybe even multiple times a day. But there isn't a hard and fast rule of, hey, do post once a week on social media. Sometimes internally in an organization, it's helpful to have some of those guidelines, but just make sure what you're posting people will find valuable.
All right. Let's go with one last one here. So someone's just getting started on making their website for their nonprofit. How can they be more effective in that space?
So there are, so how do you create a first-time website for your nonprofit? There's lots of services out there that, as far as from the technology area, to be able to build it. You can look at Wix.com. I think FireSpring also offers some plug-and-play solutions. You can get on there and just create your website pretty seamlessly, pretty straightforward. But it's really not to be most effective. It's not just about the technology. It's about thinking through some specific questions that you should ask is around the building the right strategy. So who is your audience? When they come to the site, what is it that we want them to do? What is it that we want them to feel? What is it that we want them to know? And then what are our specific calls to actions on that what is it we want them to do? And what is the flow when they respond? How are we going to follow up with them on a regular basis? And asking, and then the last, not the last questions, lots of questions, but another question to ask is, how do we measure success for this website? So that a lot of solutions, if you Google creating a new nonprofit website, you'll see lots of out-of-the-box solutions that offer that for you. But the real thing is, how do we build the right strategy? And so asking who your audience is, what do we want them to do when they come to the site? What's our calls to actions? And then how do we measure success? Those are the areas that I would start with.
All right, Chad, one of the last questions is, can you explain how Journity works? But I'm gonna I don't know if you're ready or prepared to do a demo, but just know that that's in here.
Okay.
And Andrea, just go ahead and reach out to Chad. His information is right there, because I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah, just Andrea, just shoot me an email and we'd be happy to talk more. But at the end of the day, think of Journity as the same way, a similar way that Amazon adds a personalized experience to people coming to their website. You're able to add a similar personalized experience to people coming to your nonprofit site that we know will increase your donations, will increase your ability to connect with the people that are coming. And we can be happy to give you a demo on how to use that for your specific organization.
Full disclosure, Nonprofit Hub, well, you showed that in the presentation. We use Journity to help guide your experience when you come to us, and it's been awesome. And with that, Chad, I am going to let you go back into isolation, and I will do the same. And I want to thank everyone for attending today. Always great to hear from you, and go out there and do good.
Thanks, Randy. Take care, everybody.